Wow, what a beautiful introduction, Adam. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Well, let's share some strategies and let's blow some minds. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope you're all doing well. Give me a thumbs up. How are you feeling? How's 2022 kicking off for you? It's good. Excellent. Well, by the end of the year, you're going to have 2 thumbs up after you apply all of these strategies that I'm sharing with you. Well, it was a pleasure when Adam reached out and told me that he would be running the Game Changers once again, because last year when it was held, it was a breakthrough event. A lot of people took these ideas and applied them. And these ideas that I'm going to share with you today are practical. They're very simple to learn, easy to apply, and when you apply them, they will bring about an immediate result. And this is what I love most about the field of emotional intelligence, is that it's stimulus response. You apply a strategy and you get immediate feedback. And what I want you to remember is through this training today, one new idea at the right time is enough to change your life. So please don't think that you have to remember everything. All I want you to do is just to take one idea away and apply that, and keep applying it till you get the result, and you will have your breakthrough. So in our time together today, you are going to learn how to catapult your influence. You're going to learn how to accelerate your impact. And of course, you're going to learn how to unleash new income levels. Now, if you have ever experienced fear, doubt, or limiting beliefs, then this training for you today is going to give you a breakthrough moment. Now, even if you're already successful or if you're just beginning, I can help you succeed faster. So all you need to do is to take one of these practical ideas away today and you will see an improvement. Now, during our time together, we're going to do 3 things. How many things are we going to do? We're going to do 3 things, and let me tell you what they are. First of all, we're going to explore the field of emotional intelligence. I'm going to educate you on best practices, and then on this training, I'm going to help you execute. So we're going to explore, educate, and execute. So we're going to do that together today. Now, Salvador Dali once said, "Have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it." Who's ever been held back by perfectionism? Has that impacted you before? You're the person who's waiting to do things 110% right. You got to do it at 120%. And when somebody says 80% perfect, you have a meltdown and you go, 80% perfect? What is that? Well, we're going to get through perfectionism, and we will never be perfect. What we're in the pursuit of is excellence, and excellence is being the best that you can be on any given day, and your best is going to change from day to day. Could you agree with that? Sometimes what you do one day can hit the ball right out of the park, but the other day you're lucky to get to first base. So excellence is being about the best that you can be at any given moment. Now, to achieve that today, we are going to learn and explore these topics. We're going to learn how to overcome the fear of, what if I try and fail? Have you ever felt that way before? What if I try and fail? Then what? I remember when I was starting one of my first businesses, what if I try and fail? What if I tell people what I'm going to do and it backfires and they think I'm a fool? Has that happened to you before? You go out on a new venture, you want to introduce a new product line or a new service, and this little voice inside of your head says, what if you try and fail? Now, the interesting part of this, if we consider a plan B, if we consider that we might fail and we entertain that thought for a minimum of 10 minutes, how many minutes? A minimum of 10 minutes. That's enough. Colin, thank you. That's enough to sabotage our own success. 10 minutes. So these strategies that I'm going to give you today will help you bring your mindset back to the right place. Secondly, you're going to learn about our Accelerate and Multiply Manifesto. There's 5 principles of success. And the fifth principle of success is operating from a psychology of excellence. So just point up to here. Just remember this, to create a psychology of excellence. And we're going to explore that today. I'm also going to share with you the latest emotional intelligence facts from Forbes. You're going to learn about the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. You're going to learn about the 4 fears to face. In addition, we're going to learn about self-awareness and what it looks like when our self-awareness is less active or more active. We're going to learn about the 7 deadly doubts. You're going to learn more about emotional awareness. You're going to learn about the 6 bullshit stories we keep telling ourselves. And I'm going to share with you 3 case studies on emotional intelligence. So, if your pencil isn't sharpened, sharpen it now. If your pen's running low on ink, you better grab a second pen. And if you've only got 3 pages there to take notes, I suggest that you get another couple more, because these ideas will really change your life. So as we go through, these are practical ideas. They bring about an immediate result, and they're all backed by science. So very excited to be sharing this with you today. Now, for all of you who can, if you could turn your cameras on, because what I would like to do every time I teach you something today, I want to talk to you, meaning that I'm going to share a strategy with you, and then we're going to execute together. So what I would like to do is to see you, and if you can speak, give me a wave, and then what I'll do is I'll bring you on live with me, and we're going to execute together. How does that sound? Sound good? You know, I went to these seminars years ago, and I remember I went to one, and the gentleman at the front, he said, "You have a millionaire mind. And now you got to turn to the person next to them and give them a high five. Then you got to turn to the next person, you got to give them a hug." Now, I'm an introvert. I didn't want to hug anybody. I didn't want to have high fives. So we don't have to high five each other physically today, but let's get a couple of high fives virtually. And I'd love to speak with each of you personally as we go through. Now, this is what I call my Accelerate and Multiply Manifesto. These are some words and phrases that trigger excellence inside of my mind. And I share these words and phrases with my clients and friends so they can start to build out that psychology of excellence. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to scan through some of these words on our Accelerate and Multiply Manifesto. And I want you to choose one set of words or a phrase that really stands out to you. So for me here, what really stands out for me today is roll with the punches. Roll with the punches. Now, this is an Australian saying. You might have it there in the United Kingdom. You might have it there. You might be familiar with it in Malaysia. See, in business, the majority of the things that you are going to do, and you're going to hate me for saying this, they're not going to work. But I think you know that already, don't you? You get into business and you think business is going to be this straight line. You think you're going to apply one idea and you're going to be a millionaire. You don't have to catch the bus anymore. You don't have to worry about money. You open the bank and there's multiple 6 and 7 figures just pouring out of the internet banking. But then you start in business and you realize most of the things that you do don't work. I remember when I started to do my first live events in 2013. I would do webinars and nobody would show up. And I had to make a decision. Do I keep running the webinar or do I give up on my dream? And so I would go week after week after week and deliver live webinars with no attendees. And I had to learn to roll with the punches. It was like somebody had punched me in the guts. It was like when I was on the ground, they kicked me in the guts again. And it was week after week. However, I had to have a level of persistency and I had to roll with those punches. Has something like this happened to you before? You've started on the journey? Gustav says yes. He raises one finger. Yes. It happens to all of us. And we've got to learn to roll with the punches. If you become more successful, you will have more challenges. I promise you. The bigger you get, the bigger challenges you're going to face. and you're going to have a level of resiliency. So what stands out to me on the manifesto is roll with the punches. So what about you? What stands out to you? Please head over to the chat box, go to the chat box and type in the word or phrase that stands out to you. Excellent. Well done, my friend. Thank you for sharing. Well spoken. Now, these words and phrases, they'll trigger new ideas within the mind. And all you have to do is have one new idea, and it can really change your life. So, who else do we have here? Richard, Mr. Parler. Good afternoon, my friend. What about you? When you look at the Accelerate and Multiply Manifesto, what word or phrase stands out for you? Excellent. So clarity, focus, and concentration. What does this mean to you? And how can you utilize this? Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. The interesting thing is with clarity is the clearer we are in our mind, the easier it is to take action. And if we have a fuzzy understanding, if we have a little bit of that brain fog, have you had that before? It's like a brain fog. You can't see the next step. If you've got that mental fog, it is very hard to take the next step. So clarity, focus, and concentration. Now, my clients, when they find me, they're looking for three things from me. They're looking to catapult their influence. They're looking to accelerate their impact, and they want to unleash new income levels. Now, over the past decade, I have now influenced more than 17,500 business people through live events and coaching. I have co-led a team of 17,000 cabin crew at Emirates Airlines. I've also delivered more than 5,500 scientific case studies into the field of emotional intelligence. I coach celebrities on national television, and my clients have increased their revenues by more than $100 million by following these ideas. So I know they work. They're working for me, they're working for my clients, and they're going to work for you too. So let's begin by exploring emotional intelligence. So we're going to explore this, and I want to hear from you. What does emotional intelligence mean to you? What do you know about emotional intelligence? Colin, good afternoon. I hope you're doing well there, my friend. You know what happens as soon as they make eye contact with me? They're straight in the hot seat. Hey, my friend, good to see you there.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. What do you know about emotional intelligence? What have you heard about it? What does it mean to you? Excellent. Now, something interesting, Colin, with focus is we have a stream of consciousness. And when we wake up in the morning to the time we go to sleep, we have around about 70,000 thoughts that go through our mind. 70,000 in one day. So it's very easy to lose focus. And as we develop our emotional intelligence, and we're going to talk about this today in the area of self-awareness, it's very important to understand why we think and feel the way that we do. It's really important to understand what is our single defining focus. And we can't have focuses. Have you heard that before? Focuses? It's remain focused. And all athletes, all successful business people have a single defining focus. And once we get the focus right, everything else then comes into alignment with that. So these ideas are going to serve you well, my friend. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to learn a lot from each other today. You're going to learn a lot from each other. And some of the things that the other participants are going to share are going to be on the top of your mind also. Now, according to Forbes magazine, this is some of the latest research that's coming out. They say that every 1 point increase in emotional intelligence adds $1,300 to your annual salary. Now, if you have a 1 point increase, then your income's going to go up. The interesting thing about emotional intelligence, you can go up multiple points in 5 key areas. And I'm going to prove this to you tonight. So I want you to be a doubting Thomas. I want you to second guess it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you case studies of people like you who have improved their emotional intelligence, and then they've become a statistic. They have become one of those people who have increased their income. So I'm going to give you case studies, but I want to build this up for you today, and I want you to be the judge of what's possible in your life. Now, according to Forbes magazine, they also say that emotionally intelligent people are proven to be more effective leaders. So let me ask you this. Adam promised that I would be here today. Did I show up? Did I show up today? So I get a thumbs up. So I have lived up to my promise. Is that fair to say? So I'm trustworthy. Now let me ask you this. Can you lend me $1 million? Well, you might say, well, Daniel, you did show up. You're trustworthy, but I just don't have $1 million that I can lend to you. Well, I like you. Could you lend me $100,000? Well, Daniel, I'd love to lend you $100,000, but I just don't have $100,000 with me. Okay, I've shown up. I'm trustworthy. Could you lend me $1,000? You'd say, Daniel, I really like you, but I just don't have $1,000 at the moment. Now, my point is this. You can't give what you don't have. So if a leader does not have confidence in themselves and their abilities, how can they give confidence to their followers? It's impossible from an emotional intelligence perspective. So what we have learned is that emotionally intelligent people are proven to be more effective leaders. They're also saying that emotional intelligence qualities play into the top 10 vital skills for the future workforce. One of the key areas of emotional intelligence is flexibility, adaptability. And you'll see that people who succeed through the pandemic are those ones who have that flexibility to change. Now, in this rapid world, the pace of change is happening faster. The world is changing faster. My children said, Dad, what's happening out there? And I said, I don't know. I said, I've never seen anything like COVID-19 in my entire life. But I said, over the past 2 years, my world has changed. My goal in 2017 was to run an online business and to deliver digitally. Now, we had the technology, but the mind had not caught up to the technology. And I was employing consultants, paying them $2,500 an hour, trying to help me to figure this out. And they said, Daniel, you're not going to be able to run your business online. That was in 2017. Even in 2017, a lot of my clients couldn't consider that you could do consulting online. They thought you had to do it face-to-face. But one thing changed. It was COVID-19. And it was the tipping point. And now the clients say, can we do it online? We don't want you here. And then the whole world changed really quickly. So it's a vital skill. We've also learned that 90% of top performers are also high in emotional intelligence. And fifthly, we've learned that sales professionals who leverage emotional intelligence close more deals. So during our time together today, I'm going to give you ideas that the top performers are using, things that you can implement immediately, and then I'll share with you case studies to demonstrate how the normal person like you and I are applying this and seeing growth in their businesses. So let's begin. Who's excited? Are you excited? Are you finding this fascinating so far? I love this topic. Sometimes my wife calls me to bed and she says, husband, I'm in bed. And I said, sorry, I'm studying emotional intelligence. So let's learn about the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. Now, pillar number 1 is called self-awareness. Now, the goal of self-awareness is to notice, label, and gauge the impact on performance of one's personal state. That relating to your emotional state. Now, the factors here with self-awareness include emotional awareness. Now, there's 27 different emotions. 27. And if you can't label the emotion, then you can't manage the emotion. Anger, there's 12 different forms of anger. There's 5 different types of guilt. And if we don't know which anger is holding us back, if we don't know which guilt is impacting us, we can't manage it effectively. So we have emotional awareness. We also have an accurate self-assessment. You've all worked with somebody like this before. Remember that person in the office who always overpromised and underdelivered, and the company got in trouble for it? Good emotional wheel there. Beautiful. You've got it. Who remembers that person in the office? It was frustrating for you. It was frustrating for the employer, and you lost the customer every single time. And those people would overpromise because they lacked an accurate self-assessment. It's like your mate. I've got one in Hong Kong. He walks around with his chest out like this, and he walks around like he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I look at him, and he's about 5'2". And I say, "What are you doing over there?" But he walks around like he's 6'5" and 150 kilos. It's an accurate self-assessment. The third area here is self-confidence. So when we talk about confidence and self-confidence, this is directly related to self-awareness. The lower your awareness, the lower your confidence. The higher your awareness, being emotional awareness and being able to self-assess, the greater your confidence will be. So let's think about fear for a moment. You've all heard of fear. None of you here would have ever experienced fear in your entire life. Fear would have never have got in your way. Fear would have never held you back in any way, shape or form. Well, it held me back for years. I had a goal to become an Australian champion athlete. My greatest fear was getting injured, was getting hurt. So a goal that I had took me 9 years to achieve the goal, when other people were achieving the same goal within 2 to 3 years. And that was incredibly frustrating because my athletic ability was actually superior to a lot of those people. But my mindset was inferior. They weren't afraid to fall. They weren't afraid to try and fail where I was. And people would say, "Daniel, it's just in your mind." And I remember that at the age of 16. Now, a good friend of mine, multi-millionaire over there in the UK, James Lavelle, he says, if you can't name it, you can't tame it. So let's explore these fears. Now, there's 4 fears that you and I need to face, not just once in our life. We've got to face these fears multiple times. The first fear is a fear of being taken advantage of. Now, I was on a podcast last night that goes out to 1.5 million people every single month, and the host explained it to me perfectly. He said, "Daniel, I now understand what was holding me back." He said, "I would not ask people for help because I had a fear that if I asked for help, somebody would take advantage of me." So the first fear that all of us have to face is the fear of being taken advantage of. If you're a leader and you're a business owner, you may play small because you have this fear of being taken advantage of. My parents were self-employed, and they would always say, "Don't employ people. You'll employ them, they'll come in, they'll steal your ideas, and they'll set up in opposition to you." The business couldn't grow because of their mindset, because they couldn't manage this fear of being taken advantage of. Is that making sense so far? Give me a wave. That would have never have happened to you, would have it? Never, ever. None of us here. It would have never have happened. Now, the second fear is a fear of rejection. Now, let me tell you, 99% of the adult population have a fear of rejection. It's called glossophobia. People fear public speaking. People would prefer to die. They say, "I would prefer to die. True, isn't it, Rosen? I would prefer to die than get up and speak publicly. Because what happens if they stand up and speak, they might get rejected, criticised, or judged. Now imagine you've got a product or a service. Maybe you've even got the cure for cancer. You've got a product that can impact people's lives positively, but you're so afraid of rejection and criticism and judgment that you don't take that idea and sell it or promote it or market it. Now, all the research over the past 70 years on sales has all demonstrated that the salespeople who don't ask for the order, 80% of the reasons why salespeople don't ask for the order is they're afraid of hearing the word no. Thank you, Richard. They don't want to hear the word no. So they don't ask for the order. If you hear no, that triggers the fear of rejection. Now, because of conditioning and the way that our parents raise us, by the time we're 18, we've heard the word no 138,000 times. No, you can't drink alcohol. No, you can't drink cigarettes. No, you can't have sex before marriage. No, you can't date that boy. No, you can't date that girl. No, you can't go to that school. Don't touch that. Don't run around inside. Don't touch your mother's money. So what happens is we always hear no, and it triggers rejection. So imagine how many times you've heard no by the time you get to your age. And then you go out and try to sell your product and service, and now you've heard no 250,000, 500,000 times. Ah! The heart wants to explode. So we're going to get past that. The third thing we've got to get past is a fear of losing our stability. One of the biggest fears for adults is losing their financial stability. So what happens is they play it safe and they get stuck in a comfort zone. And it's that fear of losing their stability that stops them from moving out. And the fourth fear that we all need to face is the fear of making a mistake. The fear of making a mistake leads to perfectionism. However, according to the American Management Association, 71% of the decisions that we make in business will turn out to be wrong in the fullness of time. Now, if you understand your numbers, 71% are going to be wrong. Deal with it. Accept that not everything is going to work. And then what you want to do is you just want to start to reduce that number from 71 down to 70, from 70 down to 69%. And what will happen is you'll become more successful faster. As I say to my clients who are perfectionists, 80% perfect. That's all you need to do. Whilst you're out taking action and the perfectionist is crossing the T's and dotting the I's and getting their font size right on their website, on their business card, you're banking dollars. So you've got to get out there. So these are the 4 fears that we need to face. So let me hear from you. Rosen. Now I've got to get your pronunciation right. Good morning, good afternoon. How are you doing there? How do I pronounce your name? How are you doing there?
It's Roisin.
Rosine.
Roisin.
Roisin. Nice to meet you. And where are you joining us from?
From Northern Ireland.
Ah, okay. Now, my wife and I went up to, this is not the correct pronunciation, we went up to Bangor. Bangor. How far is Bangor from you?
About an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, wonderful. I also went over to, well, my best friend from Sri Lanka got married to a girl from Northern Ireland.
Very good.
But I had been over to Limerick City. Have you heard of Limerick before?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep, I went over to Limerick and I worked on a dairy farm for a day.
Oh, very good.
And then I thought the man was going to eat me alive, so I ran away. It was back in 2002.
Very good. I'm quite sure he wouldn't have you alive.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy. So other than that, I had a lovely experience on the west coast there and made my way down to Cork, down the bottom. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, beautiful place. I love the smell of the peat, the peat moss.
Yeah, that's really nice.
It's beautiful. Now, we've been exploring the 4 fears which of these 4 fears stood out to you, and what's an example for you? I noticed when I mentioned rejection, you gave me a couple of head nods. Excellent. Good. Well, the first step here is awareness. And if you can name it, then you can start to tame it. And the interesting thing with public speaking is there's no natural born speakers. There's no natural born communicators. Communication and public speaking is a skill. And it's a skill that we have to learn. And once you get the competence of speaking publicly, then the confidence rises and the fear diminishes. So I was afraid of public speaking, and I was cabin crew. And once upon a time, my manager said, Daniel, you got a lovely voice. Would you do the PA? And I said, I couldn't do the PA. And she said, well, you got to learn how to do it. So I went and stood behind the curtain on the aircraft, and I got the PA and I said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Emirates Flight 418 from Dubai to Sydney. And I did the PA. And after I did the PA, I was walking through the cabin and they said, who did that? Who did that? And I said, that was me. And they're like, that was incredible. But after that, I got frightened. I was afraid because I went, oh my gosh, can I repeat that? Can I do it again? So then I went and learned how to speak professionally. And it was once I learned how to speak professionally that my real confidence came. Because there's certain strategies that you can learn to feel more confident. I've done many things. Many things. So what I'll do, you write to me and I'll tell you what I did and I'll point you in the right direction. Let's do that. So you can learn how to do it. My pleasure. And then it's systematic desensitization. It's doing the thing that you fear, and eventually the fear will go away over time. Good. And you're doing public speaking here now. So well done. Excellent. The journey's begun. Excellent. So fears. Fears really do get in our way of performing at our best. And the only thing standing between you and your goal is oftentimes just a fear. And if you can learn to manage the fear and regulate the fear and then acquire the skill to public speak or whatever it is, then your confidence will rise. Is that making sense so far? Give me a thumbs up. Beautiful. Now, pillar number 2 of emotional intelligence. The second pillar of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. Now, the goal of self-regulation too is incorporate emotional energy into productive pursuits while managing impulses and disruptions. Now, there's 5 key factors here. First of all is self-control. Second is trustworthiness. Thirdly is consciousness. Fourth is innovation, and 5 is adaptability. So what do they say? It's not the strongest of the species that survive. It's the most adaptable to change. So people who you see who are really succeeding through COVID-19 will be more emotionally intelligent in the area of self-regulation. That's where it's coming from. Now, this is quite fascinating. What we've learned is that one negative emotion, a negative emotion like fear, can impact your performance for up to 4 hours. Essentially, once that fear comes through, the emotion you're going to feel for somewhere between 4 and 30 seconds. But that emotion that you experience for 4 to 30 seconds can impact your performance for up to 4 hours. So we know that negative emotions are not good for the body. Secondly, it takes 5 positive emotions just to cancel out one negative emotion. That's like eating a hamburger and then running for 5 hours. One negative emotion lasts for 4 hours, but it takes 5 positive emotions to cancel out one negative emotion. So these negative emotions are powerful, aren't they, Ramesh? They're incredibly powerful. And then when we have negative events, they act as a multiplier. So think about your typical business person who has to prospect, present, and close. You've got a prospect and you're going to get more no's than yeses. Would that be fair to say? And then you're going to present, and you're going to present more times, and more people are going to say no than they're going to say yes. So you've got to deal with rejection, 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 and finally you get a little win. Now, the salesperson or the business person who is less active in the area of self-regulation will struggle to control their emotions. So the goal of self-regulation is to be able to regulate these emotions so we don't have an emotional hijacking. So let's explore this. So let's continue with the learnings. Now, the third pillar of emotional intelligence is motivation. And motivation, the goal of motivation is to channel emotional energy to pursue personal objectives. Now, the factors include achievement drive, commitment, initiative, and optimism. Now, a lot of people start out on the journey, but they're not committed to see it all the way through to the end. So as we learn to increase our motivation, we've also got to remain committed. Now, I gave you an example before. I had a lot of fear, and I believe my fear was legitimate. I had spent many years in remedial therapy. I had suffered Epstein-Barr virus chronic fatigue, and then I had 2 major knee surgeries. So I didn't want to get hurt. So albeit I was aware of my fear, I also had a lot of commitment to the goal. The goal that I wanted to achieve was to become an Australian champion. But I had Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue, I had teenage chickenpox, then I spent 2 years in rehabilitation. However, I was committed to the goal, and albeit it took me 9 years, I was relentless in the pursuit. And that's because that motivation level was high. Is that making sense? Now, my grandfather, he wasn't an educated man, but he was a smart man. And he told me once, he said, "You can't beat a man who refuses to quit." And in business sometimes, the best strategy is just not to quit. If you can just keep your door open one day longer than everybody else, ultimately you will succeed. So remember, this comes from the area of motivation. Now, the fourth pillar of emotional intelligence is social awareness. The goal of social awareness is to ensure we are collecting and analysing the emotional signals from the people around us. Now, this includes understanding others, leveraging diversity, political awareness, service orientation, developing others. Now, we also call this empathy. And if there is no empathy in today's market, there are no sales. If somebody's offering you a product and a service and they don't ask you questions about you and what's important to you and the challenges that you're facing, and they just try to pitch a product to you, are you going to buy from them? Do you want to sit down and be pitched to? Do you want the salesperson to sit down and say, "Hey, I'm going to give you my presentation for the next 45 minutes. Do you want to sit there and listen to their sales pitch?" Not anymore. So what we say, if there is no empathy, there are no sales. And we're moving into a point of time now where the relationship is more important than the purchase. What the buyer wants is a relationship. Because if I have that relationship, then I feel safe and I don't feel that I'm going to make a buying mistake. Now, if the salesperson can't build trust, if they have no empathy, they won't survive. Now, the fifth pillar of emotional intelligence is social regulation. The goal of social regulation is to positively impact each situation in which we are involved, and it's to leave the situation better than we found it. And here is exactly where leadership takes place. As Richard said before, communication. It's conflict management. It's leadership. Leadership is the ability to get results through other people. It's also influence. If you can't influence people, you can't get them to change their perceptions. It's also about collaboration and cooperation. What I teach my clients today is partnering. When you are selling a service, you're actually now partnering with this person's success. You are making a contribution in the life or the business of the people that you're dealing with. People want collaboration. Do you want somebody to have a bit of skin in the game? Aren't you sick and tired of people over-promising and under-delivering, and you always lose your money? They always win. They get paid. You end up with nothing? Are you sick and tired of that? Don't you like it when somebody has skin in the game and they say, we're in this together? If it works, we both win big. And if it doesn't work, I accept full responsibility. In the future, if people can't offer risk reduction or a 100% money-back guarantee on their products and services, they won't survive the market. It's time to collaborate. It's also being a catalyst for change, building bonds, and even team capability. The job of the leader is to build a team. The reflection of the business is a reflection of the leader. The team is a reflection of the leader. The leader has to build the team. Excellent. Are you enjoying this so far? Plenty of good ideas? Gee, I love this topic. Beautiful. Now, this is really important because what you focus on grows inside of your mind. Your focus influences your emotional state. Your thoughts influence 95% of your feelings. So if we focus on what could go wrong, then it will trigger the fears within us. Absolutely. 100%. And we are in control of this, and we can change our focus at any given time. At any given time, in a split second. We've just got to focus on the right things. So when we have that stream of consciousness and those 70,000 thoughts a day, instead of focusing all the things that are bad, and 70% of your thoughts are actually counterproductive or counterintuitive to what you're trying to achieve. And so, like Christiane says, just focus on what you want. That's the key to success. Thank you, my dear. Thank you. Gee, I love it when people pick that one. That's a great one. So let's explore self-awareness. Now, Veronica says, to know yourself, you must sacrifice the illusion that you already do. And all of us can really improve. I know Ramesh likes this one. I can see him all the way over there in Malaysia, shaking his head. So true, isn't it, Ramesh? So let's learn about self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand our moods, our emotions and drives, as well as their effects. Self-awareness is knowing your internal states, your emotions, your preferences, your resources, and intuitions. Now, when our self-awareness is less active, we may struggle to articulate what we do and don't like. And it's incredibly challenging at this time of year because people set New Year's, what do they call them? New Year's resolutions. And they could do a billion things, but they can't choose one. It's happened to me so many times. You could do a million things, but you can't even think of one. And this comes back down to a less active self-awareness. Secondly, people who tend to be less active in the area of self-awareness, they tend to have a limited emotional vocabulary. Now, there's 27 different types of emotions. And when you ask somebody, how do you feel? When you ask somebody, how do you feel? We're asking for the emotional state. What do most people say? Not bad. The British say, not bad. Others say good. Good is a concept. Good is not an emotion. Not bad is a lack of feeling something. And bad is not an emotion. So when we ask somebody, how do you feel? You're actually getting a temperature check here. Are they emotionally aware or not? Thirdly, if our self-awareness is less active, we tend to overlook or ignore emotional data when making a decision. So I was working with a gentleman not long ago and he was trading foreign exchange. Where are my Forex traders here? Have I got any traders here? Now, he had his strategies in place. And when he was on a roll and when his strategies was working, he would get excited. He'd get excited. And then he had what we call an emotional hijacking. He was so excited that he lost connection to the logical mind. And instead of following the strategy, he got excited and started to hold on too long. He started to get greedy. And then trade after trade, he would blow his account because he was ignoring the emotional data when making a decision. The decision's made in the right brain, in the emotional brain, but he'd have an emotional hijacking because he got too excited. And then he would blow his money. Fourthly, when our self-awareness is less active, we may over or underestimate our personal strengths and limits. Now, I'm guilty of this. Very guilty. Setting goals that are too big. Setting goals that are absolutely impossible from where I'm starting from. And then setting myself up for failure. Now, I must be the only person in this room tonight who's done that. Is that true? No. Oh, thank God. Thank God. I thought there was something wrong with me. Well, I've got to admit that my self-awareness is not always active. And sometimes my goals are just too big and they're just totally unrealistic because I overestimate my personal strengths. I'm going to get there because of my personality. I'm going to get there because I only need 4 hours of sleep until I get chronic fatigue again and sleep for 3 months. So we've got to have this level of self-awareness. And if we don't, we end up setting ourselves up for failure. Is this making sense so far? So let me check in. I can see Keely. Keely, good afternoon. I hope you're doing there. Beautiful big smile there. What have you learned in this section of the training? Excellent. And the fascinating part here is notice the level of awareness. That's the first step. If you can name it, now you can tame it. So for you, and this is what I work with my clients, is we say, where's the person more active and less active? So you're more active here in self-awareness because you can articulate the problem. The next thing for you will be in self-regulation and learning how to regulate that fear of success. And once you can regulate that, success will be both easy and predictable for you. So self-awareness is not the problem. You've got the awareness. Now it's working on the regulation. And it cascades like a waterfall. We start with self-awareness and then we move down to regulation. Once we regulate the emotion and the fear of success, your motivation will rise because you'll say, oh my gosh, I've got my energy back. Instead of sabotaging myself, I got my energy back to move forward and achieve success. Does that make sense? Okay, you're in the right place. Wonderful. Nice to see you there. Thank you for sharing. So cool. And I'm sure all of us have been there. Sometimes people are less afraid of failure than they are of success. And again, as I mentioned before, remember that fear of losing our stability? If we move out of the comfort zone and all of a sudden we get success, how do I handle this fame? How do I handle this money? Who's going to take advantage of me? And it triggers all of these fears once we leave the comfort zone. So let's learn more about self-awareness. Now, when our self-awareness is more active, we become clear on our personal preferences and our priorities. We have a rich emotional vocabulary to categorize our emotions. We end up listening to our intuition and we interpret its meaning. We know how much to take on and we know what to turn down. Where are my friends who are people pleasers? You just want to say yes to everybody? Yes, 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 yes. Like that show, The Yes Man with, what's his name? You know the one I'm talking about. The guy who was Ace Ventura. What's his name? Yeah, you know the one.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey. Thank you so much. Yes, the Yes Man. So this is an example of self-awareness. So let's have a look at a couple of these case studies. So this is emotional intelligence case study number 1. The gentleman here is named Matt Karan. Now in 2017, we measured his emotional intelligence. And you can see here on the left-hand side, top left-hand side, there's a piece of the pie here, and it says self-awareness. Now, the self-awareness was very low at 4.4. So when it come to being a business owner, when it come to selling his products and service, he had a very low level of self-awareness. Now, remember before I asked if I could borrow $1 million, and you said, Daniel, well, you're a nice guy. You said you're going to show up. You're trustworthy, but I can't give what I don't have. So because he couldn't understand himself, he couldn't read the emotional makeup of his customer. So over a period of 18 months, we helped him improve his emotional intelligence. And on the right-hand side, you can see his new emotional quotient. And what we can see, it started to fill out. Emotional intelligence is something that you can learn and improve. Now, the self-awareness went from a score of 4.4 or 44 to 82, close to doubling. Now, as a result of doubling his self-awareness, his earnings also went up 250%. Is that incredible? And this was so amazing in the real estate industry that they interviewed him and they interviewed me, and they said, how is this possible? How can somebody increase their earnings by 250% in 1 year? Well, the answer is emotional intelligence. So remember before, 1 point improvement, $1,300 increase. For him, it went from 44 to 82, and then his earnings went up 250%. And his business is still growing today. So this is what happens when you improve your emotional intelligence. So, as Forbes magazine says, sales professionals who leverage emotional intelligence close more deals. And so I'm seeing this in my own life and the life of my clients. Is this making sense? Give me a thumbs up. We see it every single day, and it comes from increasing that level of self-awareness. Now, there's 7 deadly doubts. How many are there? 7. There's 7 deadly doubts. Yes. Have you got enough fingers there? You got enough fingers? You got them all there? 7? So there's 7 deadly doubts. And Brian Tracy, my mentor, says, fear and self-doubt have always been the greatest enemies to human potential. So let's have a look at these 7 deadly doubts. Number 1, what if I try and fail? Number 2, am I progressing fast enough? Number 3, what will others think of me? Number 4, am I credible enough? Number 5, did I leave my job too soon? Number 6, will I ever feel successful again? And number 7, when will I have my breakthrough? Now, these are the 7 deadly doubts. And if we have one of these, it's enough to sabotage our own success. So Ramesh, good evening. Hope you're doing well there. These 7 deadly doubts, which of those impact you, or which is one that you need to overcome to start to unleash more potential? Very dangerous, even deadly. Thank you for sharing. Now, the first step is always awareness, and at least if it's better the devil that we know. And if I can name it, then I can tame it. So let me share with you another emotional intelligence case study. Now, as part of learning about emotional intelligence with my clients, I help them understand their behavioral styles. I also help them understand their skill sets. And what can happen is we may spend a whole year working on the wrong skill. Now, one of my clients, when I started to work with him, we started to have a look at his behavioral styles, and then we started to have a look at his skills. And on the bottom right-hand side, we could see that his interpersonal skills were less active. So we spent a year just working on these interpersonal interpersonal skills. Now, as a result, he became a better leader. He became a better communicator. He understood his own preferences and really started to understand his customers. Now, 4 months after he started to improve his emotional intelligence, and we're working from left to right, he achieved his first goal, which was to buy a Mercedes-Benz. And he says here, another single defining focus acquired. I acquired this baby this month. He bought himself a new Mercedes. Secondly, in August, 8 months later, he won his biggest project. It was the biggest gig he'd ever done. And then in January, week 1 of this year, he sent me this message and he said, thank you for your mentorship. I am grateful for having you as my mentor. I just successfully made a tender and won it worth $1.16 million. Incredible. And he just focused on developing those interpersonal skills for a year. So what we can see is Forbes magazine, with their research, emotionally intelligent people are proven to be more effective leaders. He got his team working for him. He started to get results through other people because his interpersonal skills were better. Now, the next thing that we've got to look at are our self-limiting beliefs. And the only thing that's standing between you and your goal is the bullshit story that you keep telling yourself as to why you can't achieve it. And for most of us, it's just a bullshit story. So I'm going to share with you 6 bullshit stories that we've got to break through. First of all, bullshit story number 1 that we tell ourselves, I don't have the time. Secondly, I don't feel worthy of success. I could never do that. Fourthly, I don't have the talent. Fifthly, I'll never make enough money to survive. Number 6, I can't sell. And these are the 6 bullshit stories that we keep telling ourselves. And as long as we tell ourselves these bullshit stories, then we can't move forward. There it is, Krishan. Thank you so much. You've still got it from 100x DNA. So this is where Krishan said before, we've got to focus on what we want. If we focus on the bullshit story, it becomes our self-fulfilling prophecy. So one more case study, just to show you what happens. This client here, they started to explore their behavioral styles. They started to have a look at their DNA. Now, on the bottom right-hand side, when we're gaining self-awareness, I'm looking at 25 personal skills of my client. And down the bottom, the second bottom one is resiliency. Now, resiliency is the ability to get knocked down and get back up. It's the ability to roll with the punches. Now, my client was in sales. She'd heard no so many times that she started to give up. So over a 1-year period, we started to develop this resiliency. How do I manage these emotions? How do I roll with the punches? Now, as a result of learning how to do that, right in the middle of the pandemic, she went ahead and increased her sales by 138 million ringgits. Is that incredible? She learned how to become more resilient. She was still selling the same product and service to the same people, but now when she hears a no, she doesn't take it personally. She doesn't have an emotional hijacking, and she keeps moving forward. So remember what Forbes says. Every point increase in emotional intelligence adds $1,300 to the annual salary. She made an extra 138 million ringgits, probably about 30 million pounds for her company. Do you think she was rewarded? You betcha. Very handsomely. So this is what happens when we develop our emotional intelligence. So this is what we've learned in today's session. We've learned how to overcome the fear of what if I try and fail. We've learned about the Accelerate and Multiply Manifesto. We've learned about the emotional intelligence facts from Forbes. We've learned the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. We've learned the 4 fears to face. We've had a look at less active and more active self-awareness. You've discovered the 7 deadly doubts. You've learned about emotional awareness, the 6 bullshit stories we keep telling ourselves, and you've seen 3 case studies of people who have improved their emotional intelligence and succeeded. So I know these ideas are going to serve you well, and all you need to do is to take one new idea away from the training and to apply it. So my final bit of advice for you is this: if nothing changes, nothing changes. And that's what I'd like to leave you with today. Now, if you're stuck and you can't overcome that feeling of what if I try and fail, I can help you overcome that. It doesn't matter if you're already successful or just beginning, I can help you break through that. So ladies and gentlemen, you are leaders. There's people who are looking up to you. You have to become successful. And as you become successful, you can then give what you have. When you have belief and confidence, you can give that to your followers. So thank you for being here, and I know that you're going to love the Game Changers experience. Well done, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Well done.